What's going on, everyone? Juicebags here, and welcome back to some Dungeon Defenders 2 and another Defense Spotlight. Today we're going to be talking about the Dryad's Angry Nimbus. Now, this Spotlight is being recorded current through the Power of the Ancients update in February of 2018. Now, the Angry Nimbus can be extremely diverse. There's just a ton of things you can do with it. But one thing to be said is it is just mean. Now, although it does look like it should be an AoE defense as it flies around and rains down on enemies, it is actually a single target defense. So although it appears it's hitting an entire pack, it is indeed only hitting one mob at a time. Now, the Angry Nimbus is really fun to use, can be exceptionally effective in Chaos 7 and beyond. Plus, it also has the ability of innately drenching mobs. So anytime that you want drench applied, the Angry Nimbus can be another one of your go-to sources to get drench applied to any enemies. Very helpful in controlled burn lanes, or particularly controlled burn lanes on controlled burn on flyer lanes, as the Angry Nimbus does attack ground mobs and flying mobs. Now, since it's a single target defense, it is indeed a heavy hitter, and it will burn through flyers just really quick. Now, this is one of the very few defenses in the game that I personally do not put any ascension points into the range gambit. We will get into the full ascension layout here in a moment. However, I personally don't put any points in the range gambit, as the Angry Nimbus just has incredible range. Now, on that same note, the range does scale extremely well with the range gambit. However, the Angry Nimbus moves really slow. Now, with it moving slow plus having a big range, sometimes it can take just an enormous amount of time to move from one target to the next. In addition to that, the AI on it seems a little bit derpy and doesn't always really do exactly what you want. Sometimes it'll just completely stop attacking, and sometimes it'll just kind of do silly things, and it seems like it's not doing what you want it to do. Now, by reducing that range, you're also reducing the possibilities of that happening, as there's less terrain for it to get confused on, or whatever the case is with the Angry Nimbus itself. I've had the best results with minimizing the range on the Nimbus the best I can. Now, once again, the range is just incredible on it, as you see here. This is with no range gambit and no range shards, and that's just what you get by default. So, I mean, tons and tons of range on the Nimbus, no doubt about that. Now, when comparing what to use, a mark or a medallion, they're insanely close. And in fact, I use these two items to compare the two. The mark is slightly better than the medallion is on almost all stats. The defense crit damage on the medallion is a little bit better than the defense power is on the mark. Actually, quite a bit better at 480, or what is that, 434 more. However, the defense speed on the mark definitely won out on the medallion. The mark, of course, has, almost 300 more in primary stats. So the mark, I would definitely consider a better piece. However, they are really close in quality to each other, so I decided to use these two for comparison. And using straight up non-hyper shards, so just the regular old shards you can get, they're almost the exact same DPS at tier 1 all the way to tier 5. Now, the mark did slightly win by about 100,000 at tier 1 and about 250,000 at tier 5. However, very slim difference. When you're talking about numbers in the 2+ million, 100,000 give or take either way is not going to measure your success in any way. And you can easily get a win screen with a mark and a medallion. Now, if you want to look at absolutely optimizing your your Nimbus with all of the hyper shards in the mix, then my go-to is mass destruction, power transfer, and defense crit damage. With this setup, I'm doing about 300,000 more DPS than I would on the mark, with the mark's best in slot. Now, without using hyper shards, what I personally would use in a medallion is power transfer, destruction, and defense crit damage. In a mark, I would use power transfer, defense crit damage, and vampiric empowerment. That is the only difference, and the DPS, like I said, between the two is very, very comparable. You can get effective results from each. Now, one of the reasons this is such a heavy-hitting tower is, as you see, the attack rate. The attack rate is 0.3 seconds. The quickest it goes down to is 0.25. And with it attacking so fast, another important shard to remember is defense rate. Prior to getting Chaos 7 quality relics, you're going to want to have defense rate in either your medallion or your mark. So prior to getting Chaos 7 quality items, you would want regular destruction, power transfer, and defense rate in a medallion, and then defense crit damage, power transfer, and defense rate in a mark. Now, lots of different ways to build it. The DPS is not a big swing in either way, and then it is fun to play with the massive range of the Nimbus. However, the larger the range you do make your Nimbus, the less viable it becomes, as it just gives it so much travel time where it's not attacking anything at all, and that's why I choose to lower the range overall on the Nimbus. Now, looking through the possible shards you could use on this, Deadly Strikes, of course, would increase the range. If you want to go full range gambit, you want to put Deadly Strikes in, you can do some absurd things with the Nimbus. Now, if you do have the Hyper Shards, Vicious Strikes is a very viable choice. Vicious Strikes alone is actually better than Deadly Strikes alone in the Nimbus by a pretty significant amount. And then if you actually get crazy enough to combine the two, you're going to get map-wide coverage on almost any map. Maybe not Bastille, but like you can cover the entire map on, say, the Dead Road, which is a pretty good size map. You can also cover the entire map on Temple and Necrotic, which is another pretty darn big map. So, I mean, you will have the Ghostbusters flying everywhere, no doubt. However, if you did do that and you combine Deadly and Vicious, you are going to drop the overall damage that the Nimbus does down considerably and lower its viability even a little bit further. Now, Destruction, of course, as I mentioned, it would be one of my vanilla go-to shards if I was using a medallion. Prior to getting Mass Destruction, Destruction would be the choice you want to put in your Nimbus. Vampiric Empowerment, of course, would go into that mark, and it may actually work out better numbers on a medallion if you have an insanely high defense health roll. And then I already mentioned defense rate and using it all the time prior to getting Chaos 7 quality loot. Now, one of the reasons the Nimbus is so effective with defense power and using the Mass Destruction and Destruction Shards is it's a heavy hitter that hits frequently. So as you see, the rain rate here is every 0.3 seconds, so it's hitting just over 3 times per second for 366,000 rain damage. That's non-crit right there alone. So that's over 1 million DPS just from the normal hits without taking any crits into effect. Now, hitting just over 3 times per second with a 30% crit chance, in a perfect world, you would crit once per second. That's another 1.5 million damage in 1 second on top of it. So you've got a heavy hitter that strikes fast and covers a large area, making the Angry Nimbus just an awesome choice. Once you get to the point where you do have controlled burn lanes in Onslaught, you definitely do not want to rule out the Angry Nimbus. Now, taking a look at the Ascension. As I mentioned, I personally do not go into the range gambit. However, if you want to play with larger range and you're having fun with it, you can still get to a victory screen by going into range gambit. However, you're not going to be maximizing the overall potential of the Nimbus. So what I personally would do starting off is my very first 20 Ascension points. So going from Ascension 1 to Ascension 60, of course, in the utility category on all defenses, you want to go directly into defense crit chance. In the defense category, if you are only building the Nimbus and not building any other defense with this Dryad, then you're going to want to put your first 20 points directly into the Angry Nimbus damage. Now, if you're using a hybrid Dryad and you're building multiple defenses with your Dryad, I would suggest going into defense speed first. That way it gives a benefit to each one of your defenses. Now, once you get past that, normally I would say go right into range gambit. Like I mentioned, you can do it. I personally don't do it, so I go directly into defense crit damage in the utility category. In the defense category, I just keep on stacking up. Now, eventually you will want to take those 20 points in defense speed. However, it is just a very, very small difference, particularly once you get to Chaos 7. If you have Chaos 7 quality pieces and you're not building any other defenses other than the Nimbus on that Dryad, it almost makes no point to go into defense speed. Now, once again, if it's a hybrid Dryad, throw the defense speed in there, and then you'll get a small benefit to all of your defenses, and not just the one. So hopefully everybody has fun with their Angry Nimbus, and it's definitely a fun tower. Who doesn't love the Ghostbusters flying around? So thank you once again. Click that like button and please subscribe to the channel. It does help me out a ton. And I will see you next time around.